He abandoned the maid after getting her pregnant. 30 years later, Karma found him. This powerful African drama tells the emotional story of a poor maid abandoned by her wealthy boss's son after she became pregnant. Rejected, shamed, and thrown into the streets by his family, she raised their son alone. 30 years later, that boy becomes a world-famous footballer, and the father returns, seeking recognition. But Karma has other plans. This is a heart-wrenching story of betrayal, strength, motherhood, and sweet revenge served with dignity. Set in modern-day Lagos, this folktale-inspired tale will leave you in tears and applause. Watch till the end to see how a boy raised by a rejected mother became a legend and gave the world a masterclass in grace and justice. The compound was quiet as dawn broke, casting a golden hue over the rooftops of the suburban estate. Mabel, the young housemaid, tiptoed across the marble tiles of her employer's home, her swollen belly hidden beneath the oversized wrapper she tied around her waist. She had been working in Chief Benson's house for over a year, and though her duties were heavy, it was the shame she carried inside her that burdened her the most. Her secret was growing, a child conceived in silence and denial. Chief Benson had seduced her under the pretense of kindness and protection, but when she told him she was pregnant, his response had been chilling. "Don't ever mention this again," he had hissed, throwing a bundle of Naira notes at her feet. "You were just a distraction. You knew what this was." The words had cut deeper than any wound. That very night, Mabel was thrown out like trash, with only her small bag and unborn child as her companions. The gates of the mansion that once welcomed her now slammed shut behind her, symbolizing the end of her dreams and the beginning of a hard life she never envisioned. She wandered the streets for days, rejected not just by the man who impregnated her, but by society itself. Eventually, she found shelter in a church-run women's center where she gave birth to a boy she named Michael, her angel, her only family. As she cradled him in her arms for the first time, she vowed to raise him with love and dignity, even if the world had shown her none. She whispered to him that he would never need anyone but her, especially not the man who had turned his back on them both. Mabel took refuge in the small women's shelter for nearly a year, working odd jobs and selling fruit in the market to earn a living. Her life became a steady rhythm of sacrifice, working by day, watching over baby Michael by night. She never once looked back at the Benson mansion or tried to reach out to his family. She had nothing left to say to them. They had chosen wealth, reputation, and denial over the truth. What mattered now was her son, and she would give him a life of dignity, even if it took every breath in her body. Despite the hardship, Mabel's heart swelled with joy each time Michael smiled. He was a happy child, full of energy and laughter. People in the neighborhood often commented on how bright and athletic he was, how he ran faster than the other kids, how he could kick anything, even an orange, like a football. Mabel saw it too, and her heart would ache, wondering if Chief Benson ever thought about the son he cast away. But she shook the thought away. They didn't need him. She and Michael would build a world of their own. When word reached Chief Benson's wife, Madame Clara, that the maid had given birth, she stormed through the house like a hurricane. "You said it wasn't true," she shouted at her husband, slamming the bedroom door shut. Benson, red-eyed and furious, insisted it was a lie, a trap set by a desperate girl seeking comfort and money. "Do you think I'd be stupid enough to touch the help?" he barked. But deep down, he knew the child was his. The resemblance was undeniable, especially now that the neighbors had begun to whisper. To protect his image, Benson pressured his elderly parents, Papa and Mama Benson, to distance themselves from Mabel completely. But the elderly couple, unlike their son, felt a deep shame for what had been done. Though they didn't intervene directly, Papa Benson made quiet inquiries, discovering Mabel had left town with her child. "You may think this is over," he warned Benson, "but blood has a voice, and someday, it speaks." Benson scoffed at the old man's words. To him, the chapter was closed. By the time Michael was 10, he was already a neighborhood sensation. His speed, stamina, and instinctive understanding of football made heads turn during local youth tournaments. Coaches began asking questions: who trained this boy? Where did he come from? Mabel never boasted. She sat quietly by the sidelines, clapping gently with pride each time her son scored a goal. She knew she couldn't afford the expensive academies, but she believed in prayer, hard work, and divine timing. One coach, Mr. Taiwo, noticed something unique in Michael's style. "This boy plays like he's got fire in his blood," he said to Mabel one afternoon. "He's got something rare." Mr. Taiwo offered to sponsor Michael's training, helping him join a youth football academy. Mabel was hesitant at first, but Michael's excitement was infectious. "Mommy, I want to make you proud," he said with shining eyes. Her heart melted. She saw Benson's eyes in his, but the kindness came from her. By age 16, Michael's name was already buzzing in Lagos football circles. Reporters from local sports blogs started attending his matches. He was known for his quick feet and strong will, a combination that earned him the nickname Fireboy. He never knew his father, and Mabel never told him. "Your father died before you were born," she lied, afraid of the emotional damage the truth could cause. "But he would have been proud of you." Michael believed her, cherishing the idea of a father who existed only in stories. With every goal he scored, Michael felt like he was climbing out of the mud his mother had dragged them through. He saw how hard she worked, how she never asked for help, how her hands were always cracked from labor. "One day, you rest, Mommy," he promised. He trained harder, played smarter, and prayed longer. To him, success wasn't about fame, it was about lifting his mother out of poverty and giving her the life she deserved. It happened on a rainy Saturday. A foreign scout from a European club had been visiting Nigeria to watch another player but ended up staying for Michael's match. The scout was captivated by his raw talent and hunger. After the game, he approached Mr. Taiwo and asked to speak with Michael and his mother. Mabel sat nervously as the scout offered her son a full scholarship to train in Europe, all expenses paid. "Your son has a future," he said. "Don't let it waste here." Tears filled Mabel's eyes. She had always prayed for a miracle, and now it was here. She agreed, though her heart ached at the thought of her son leaving. Michael hugged her tightly. "I'll never forget where I came from," he whispered. She smiled through her tears, placing her hand on his chest. "Never forget who you are either." As the plane took off weeks later, Mabel stood at the airport window, waving at the little boy she raised into a man, now flying towards his destiny. Michael adjusted quickly to life abroad. The cold weather, strange food, and foreign language were no match for his determination. Within a year, he was promoted to the senior team. Newspapers started calling him the Nigerian Phoenix, and his fan base grew across Europe and Africa. Endorsement deals rolled in, and within 3 years, Michael was one of the most talked about footballers on the continent. He never forgot to call his mother every Sunday. "You're my reason," he always said. "Every game, I play for you." Mabel, now living in a modest but comfortable house Michael bought for her, watched every match religiously. The boy she once shielded from hunger was now feeding nations with inspiration. But she knew the truth still lingered in the shadows. One day, it would come out. And when it did, she prayed Michael would be strong enough to face it. Because in the quiet corners of Lagos, someone else had begun to pay attention. One evening, Chief Benson's friend forwarded a viral video clip to his phone. It showed a young African football star thanking his mother in an emotional post-match interview. Benson stared at the screen, confused. "His name is Michael." "Michael Benson," the man laughed. "Any relation?" Benson sat up, suddenly struck by the uncanny resemblance. The eyes. The jawline. Even the way he walked. It was like staring into a mirror from 30 years ago. He called for his laptop and began researching. Within minutes, Benson's hands were shaking. This footballer was his son. The very boy he had denied, abandoned, and erased. Now a global star. His stomach turned as realization crashed over him. The name Michael Mabelson had been carefully chosen by Mabel, a slap of truth hidden in plain sight. Benson slumped in his chair, knowing the world would soon ask, why did this famous footballer never mention his father? Chief Benson saw the opportunity to rewrite the past, not with truth, but with noise. He went on social media and uploaded a dramatic video. With tears in his eyes, he said, "I raised my son in silence. I didn't want him to grow up in the spotlight. I gave his mother everything, but she took him and vanished. Now he's successful and refuses to speak to me. My son abandoned me. The video went viral instantly. Sympathy poured in from some, while others demanded answers from Michael. Michael woke up to chaos. His phone buzzed endlessly. Reporters were camping outside his training facility. Fans tagged him, asking if it was true. His hands trembled as he clicked on the video and saw the man claiming to be his father, a man he never knew, now crying online. "What is this, Mom?" he asked during their next call. Mabel froze, the lies of 30 years trembling on her lips. The time had come. Mabel sat quietly, staring at the floor. "I was going to take this to my grave," she began. "But maybe it's time you knew." Over the next hour, she poured out the story, the seduction, the betrayal, the denial, the eviction. She wept as she spoke, not out of weakness, but from 30 years of buried pain. Michael listened in silence, his face hardening with every word. His entire life had been built on a lie, a father who never died, but abandoned him. "I didn't want you to hate yourself," she said, "or feel less than anyone. So I made up a father you could be proud of." Michael's heart broke, not just for himself, but for his mother. She had carried this alone for decades. "He wants to ride on your fame now," she added, her voice shaking. "But you owe him nothing." Michael stood up. The world wanted a response, and they would get one. But it wouldn't be tears or theatrics. It would be truth. Michael took a deep breath before stepping into the press room. His club's PR team had arranged a short statement, advising him to be calm and diplomatic. But Michael had other plans. He approached the podium with quiet confidence, looked into the sea of cameras, and began, "A man recently claimed to be my father. I never met this man. My mother raised me alone. She was my father, mother, provider, and protector. Any man who abandoned a child has no right to call himself a father, especially not in public, for attention." The room was dead silent. Then a flood of applause erupted. Michael's words trended worldwide within minutes. Fans, celebrities, and athletes rallied behind him, praising his courage. But while the world cheered, Chief Benson fumed in his office. "He turned the people against me," he roared. Madam Clara, sitting across from him, folded her arms. "You made your bed, Chief," she replied coldly. "Now lie in it." Chief Benson didn't expect a backlash. Instead of gaining sympathy, he became the subject of online ridicule. Hashtags like #AbsentFather and #Mabel was the real parent dominated social media. Old photos and records began resurfacing, including a dismissed court case involving Mabel and unpaid wages. The public began connecting the dots. News outlets camped outside the Benson home, and protesters even appeared at the gate, holding signs that read, "Tell the truth." The pressure began to mount. Clients pulled out of Benson's real estate company. Business deals were paused. Even his political contacts avoided him. "You've made a mess," Papa Benson scolded. "You should have apologized quietly instead of seeking praise publicly." For the first time in his life, Chief Benson felt the sting of accountability. He tried to reach out to Michael through intermediaries, but the young footballer refused. "Let him talk to my silence," Michael said. A popular Nigerian journalist reached out to Mabel for an exclusive interview. At first, she declined. But Michael encouraged her. "The world should hear from you, Mom. Not for fame, for truth." Nervously, Mabel sat before the cameras and told her story. She didn't cry or speak with bitterness. She simply stated facts, how she had been hired as a housemaid, used, then thrown out when she became pregnant. How she begged, cried, and was cast aside like waste. The interview aired across Africa and beyond. Viewers wept as she spoke. "I didn't raise a footballer," she concluded. "I raised a good man. One I'm proud of." Her dignity touched the world. Sponsors reached out. Women's rights groups called her a hero. Overnight, Mabel became a symbol of resilience. Michael flew home to surprise her after the broadcast, wrapping her in a tight embrace as cameras captured the emotional reunion. "You did it, Mom," he whispered. Back in the Benson mansion, shame settled like a storm cloud. Papa and Mama Benson sat quietly, staring at a photo of their grandson on the newspaper cover. "He looks just like you did," Mama whispered to Chief Benson. "But with a better heart." Papa Benson nodded. "I told you 30 years ago, blood speaks. And it has spoken." The old man picked up his phone and called Mabel's number, which he'd kept for decades. "Mabel," he said, his voice trembling, "I am sorry. We were wrong." Tears welled in Mabel's eyes. "Thank you, Papa," she replied gently. "It's late, but it means something." He asked if they could meet. She hesitated, but Michael, standing beside her, gave a small nod. "Let's hear them out," he said. "Closure isn't for them. It's for us." Mabel agreed. The past was still a wound, but forgiveness was a balm, even if only for her own peace. Mabel and Michael arrived at the Benson mansion days later. The air was heavy with emotion. Papa and Mama Benson stood waiting at the door, visibly aged and remorseful. "Welcome home, even if it's for the first time," Mama said softly. Mabel nodded, clutching Michael's hand. Inside the house, old portraits of Benson's other children lined the walls, none as successful or famous as Michael. The silence between them all spoke volumes. Chief Benson arrived late, avoiding eye contact. He muttered a weak apology, barely audible. Michael didn't reply. Instead, he walked to the center of the room and looked his father in the eye. "You don't get to rewrite the past," he said. "But you can live with it. I'm not here for your guilt. I'm here so my mother can finally be free of it." Chief Benson looked away. There was nothing left to say. With the media frenzy slowly coming, Michael returned to Europe and resumed training. Fans now saw him not just as a footballer but as a symbol of strength and integrity. His social media following exploded, and his club offered him a new contract with better terms. But Michael remained humble. In every interview, he mentioned his mother and their journey. "We rose from dust," he said. "And we are still rising." He started using part of his earnings to fund education and sports scholarships for children of single mothers across Nigeria. "Every child deserves a shot," he said. His foundation, named Mabel's Light, quickly gained international attention. His story wasn't just about football anymore. It was about justice, resilience, and rising above shame. Chief Benson watched from afar, consumed with regret. Madam Clara, Benson's wife, simmered with silent rage. "You brought this disgrace upon us," she spat at her husband. "All because you couldn't control yourself." She resented Mabel and envied the praise she received from the public. "She was a maid, and now she's a heroine," she scoffed. But deep down, Clara knew the world had chosen rightly. Mabel had done what many women couldn't, raised a child in shame and silence, and still produced greatness. Clara tried to convince her children to fight back, to defend their father's legacy, but they refused. "Mom, let it go," her eldest daughter said. "Michael didn't take anything from us. He just reclaimed what should have been his all along." Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The world she knew was crumbling, and there was no going back. Chief Benson fell into a deep depression. He stopped attending board meetings, isolated himself, and drank heavily. One evening, he walked into the old storage room and found a box of baby clothes, Michael's, which Mabel had left behind all those years ago. He clutched the tiny shoes and wept. Alone. Ashamed. "I ruined everything," he whispered. He called a press conference, surprising everyone. Sitting before cameras, he confessed. "I was a coward. I denied my son. I threw away his mother. I thought wealth could silence truth, but it can't. Mabel is a better person than I'll ever be. Michael, if you're watching, I am sorry." The video was raw, broken, and honest. It spread like wildfire. And for the first time, the public didn't mock him. They pitied him. Michael watched the video in silence. When it ended, he turned to Mabel. "Should we forgive him?" he asked. Mabel sighed. "Forgiveness is not about him. It's about us." Together, they made a short response video, no bitterness, no fanfare. "We forgive you," Michael said. "But we don't forget. We move forward, and we do better." The world applauded. It wasn't weakness. It was strength. Chief Benson broke down upon watching it. He reached out to Mabel and asked to see her one last time. She agreed. At their meeting, he handed her a signed letter transferring part of his estate to Michael. "Not for forgiveness," he said, "but for justice." Mabel accepted it with grace. "Thank you," she said. "But my son already has everything he needs, me." Michael stood before a crowd of thousands as he accepted an international humanitarian award. Cameras flashed, fans cheered, but his mind was with his mother, sitting quietly in the front row, beaming with pride. "This award isn't mine," he said. "It belongs to a woman who gave everything and asked for nothing. My mother, my rock, Mabel." After the ceremony, reporters asked if he now had a relationship with his father. "No," he replied calmly. "I have closure, not connection. And that's enough." His words were not angry, they were free. That night, he and Mabel sat under the stars, looking out over the city skyline. "We did it," she whispered. Michael smiled. "We're just getting started." Months after receiving his humanitarian award, Michael officially launched the Mabel Foundation, a multi-million-dollar initiative focused on supporting single mothers, abandoned children, and young athletes across Africa. The foundation headquarters was located in Lagos, and the inauguration was a grand event attended by dignitaries, athletes, and entertainers from across the continent. Mabel stood beside her son, her eyes moist with emotion. She had spent decades in silence and pain, but now her name was etched in golden letters above the gates of a foundation that would change lives. "This is more than a charity," Michael said during his speech. "It's a lighthouse for the forgotten, a tribute to every woman who raised greatness alone." The applause was deafening. That day, Mabel's story became not just history, but legacy. One morning, as Mabel sat at the foundation reviewing applications, a visitor appeared. It was the woman who had worked alongside her as a maid in the Benson household, Ifeoma. Now older and widowed, she had fallen on hard times and was seeking assistance for her granddaughter. The two women embraced tearfully, their shared past flooding back. "I remember how they treated us," Ifeoma said softly. "But you rose." Mabel smiled. "By God's grace and this boy's strength," she replied, glancing at Michael's photo. Mabel personally ensured the girl was enrolled in school and given full support. That day, she realized the journey had come full circle, from the scullery to the spotlight, from abandonment to empowerment. Chief Benson's health began to deteriorate rapidly. Liver complications worsened, and doctors predicted he had only a few months left. On his deathbed, he requested to see Michael one final time. It took days of soul-searching, but Michael eventually agreed. He visited his father quietly, without the media, entering the room where the once powerful man now lay frail and subdued. "I won't ask for much," Chief Benson said, his voice hoarse. "I just wanted to see what kind of man you became. And you turned out better than me." Michael stood silently. "I hope you found peace in your repentance," he finally said. Chief Benson reached for his hand. Michael hesitated but took it briefly. "Thank you, son," the old man whispered. It was the last word he ever spoke. News of Chief Benson's passing made headlines. Some remembered his achievements in business, but most focused on the scandal and his late-life confession. Michael chose not to attend the funeral. Instead, he sent flowers with a simple card that read, "May your soul find peace." Mabel also remained home, sitting quietly in prayer, releasing decades of pain with every tear. The family fought over the estate, but Michael wanted no part of it. "Let them have it," he told his lawyer. "I'm building something of my own, something cleaner." His decision earned him even more respect from the public. He wasn't a man driven by revenge or greed, he had become a symbol of grace in the face of betrayal. For the first time in her life, Mabel traveled outside Nigeria. Michael flew her to Paris, where she strolled along the Seine and visited the Eiffel Tower. She had once cleaned rooms in silence, but now she slept in 5-star hotels and dined in luxury. "I never dreamed of this," she said one evening as they watched the sunset. "But you did, didn't you?" Michael nodded. "Every match I played, every goal I scored. I saw your face. And I promised myself, one day, I'd bring you here." Mabel leaned on his shoulder. "You kept your promise." That trip healed something in her. For the first time, she allowed herself to truly smile, not just from relief, but from joy. With fame came challenges. Rumors began to swirl, fabricated stories about Michael's private life, fake relatives trying to cash in, and gossip blogs resurrecting old wounds. It frustrated Michael, but Mabel reminded him gently, "The higher the tree, the stronger the wind. Don't let them shake your roots." He doubled down on his work, focusing on the foundation, his club, and quietly mentoring young footballers who reminded him of himself. One day, he caught sight of a boy playing barefoot on a sandy pitch in Ajegunle, just like he had. He took the boy under his wing. "I see me in you," he said. "And you will rise, just like I did." At a charity gala hosted by the Mabel Foundation, Michael met someone unexpected, his half-brother, the first son of Chief Benson from his marriage. Unlike others, this brother wasn't bitter. "I always wanted to meet you," he said sincerely. "You're the best of all of us." They spoke for hours, sharing stories, laughing at their similarities. The brother confessed he had always admired Michael's courage. "You didn't just change your life," he said. "You changed the meaning of what it means to carry our surname." That night, for the first time, Michael felt what it might have been like to grow up with a sibling, one not tainted by their father's sins. Mabel suggested that the foundation's next project be a school, a place where children of single mothers could receive free, high-quality education. "Let's name it the Rising Hope Academy," she said. Michael agreed. Within a year, the first campus opened in Ogun State with 500 students and full scholarships. Mabel was invited to cut the ribbon. She stood before the gathered crowd, holding the scissors with trembling hands. "This school is not just a building," she said. "It's a promise that no child will be forgotten just because their father walked away." The cheers echoed for minutes. The woman who was once silenced had become a beacon for others. The foundation now had roots deep in the soil of justice. On the 30th anniversary of Michael's birth, he published an open letter titled, "To the Father Who Walked Away." It wasn't filled with rage, but reflection. He detailed his pain, his journey, and the redemption his mother offered to both of them. "I didn't become a man because of you," he wrote. "I became a man in spite of you. And maybe, that was your role all along, to show me how not to be." The letter went viral. Millions shared it. Schools read it aloud in assemblies. Non-profits printed it as a motivational pamphlet. And across the world, fathers who had abandoned their children started reaching out, trying to mend what was broken. Michael's story wasn't just personal anymore. It had become a global mirror. Years later, Michael stood on stage at the United Nations, delivering a keynote address on social justice and family restoration. His mother sat in the front row, now in her 60s but glowing like a queen. "I am not the son of privilege," he said. "I am the son of a housemaid. A woman who loved in silence, who endured in shadows, and still raised light." As he concluded, he walked off stage and embraced Mabel. "We've come a long way," he whispered. She smiled through tears. "And we still have far to go." That night, under the stars once again, they talked of tomorrow. The past had wounded them, but it had also shaped them. And in that pain, they had built something beautiful, a life that proved abandonment didn't define destiny. The end. Subscribe for more African folktales, betrayal stories, and moral lessons that speak to the soul.